How do we go about telling someone what they said was racist without calling them a racist? We see throughout history that this could be a problem for many people to overcome. Predominantly through the 1960s, segregation allowed people to become accustomed to racism and the ideologies of that time. Racism was a part of daily life, and it was okay at that time to hold and follow these beliefs. The people who actually stood up to defend racist acts were often looked down upon from other members of society because many people were so reluctant to change their views. White-only bathrooms, means of transportation, schools, and drinking fountains were just some of the things that were separated by white-only and colored signs. The Civil Rights Movement drew attention to the inequalities based upon race in the United States. When the Civil Rights Act passed, it ended social segregation. Americans now had the idea that racial issues no longer existed. Now that it was illegal to discriminate based on racial, ethnic, religious, nationality, and gender identities, it changed the way people acted. But people still had these racist biases. As a whole, we were never taught how to deal with race, or how to talk about it. J. Smoot mentions that many Americans have trouble finding common ground by voicing the critique of talking about race or racial comments. Even to some extent, some Americans believe that ever since the Civil Rights Act, racial disparities no longer exist. J. Smoot goes on to mention that many Americans have difficulties of talking constructively about race and racism within the U.S. In a different scope, we see Americans are trying to find a better way to communicate racial ideas. Although in reality we ignore the idea of racism, we view this ignorance as progress. J. Smoot refers to this as dealing with a social construct that wasn't designed to make sense. History has blinded us with the idea that when people mention race, that it's because they are being racist, when in actuality, no one has ever confronted them on how they should deal or approach discussions about race. We still see this persist today. As much as we try to prove otherwise, America is masked with a colorblind ideology, with the idea that racism no longer exists. This is a problem because when race comes up in the conversation, its meaning is taboo. Colorblind racism is a problem that we focus on them being a racist instead of what they said being racist. This is what is hard for people to overcome when they find something wrong within a discussion about race. People are extremely defensive at anything they see as an accusation saying they are racist. It makes it seem that it is a personal problem rather than a societal issue. So how do we go about challenging racial injustices? Well, first, many of us need to realize that if you can't confront societal issues, there isn't one. When dealing with someone who might have said something racist, don't get angry or offended with what they said because many of their views that they hold have been through institutions of society, and most of the generalizations or hasty comments that they make are based on blissful ignorance. Racism isn't a personal thing, and there are ways for us to grow stronger from it. We just need to stop the domino effect of these racial identities or beliefs that we classify a person with.